Welcome to the Dream On podcast. I'm Travis Gentry.
And my name is Julia Gentry.
So today I'm going to talk a little bit faster because Julia sometimes talks really slow.
You guys,
so
do you
to
know
get
my
through this
husband-
podcast,
Do you know my husband just told me before we started this podcast is that sometimes I talk too slow and he wishes that he could just push the speed button to get me to the end of my sentence faster. So if I start talking like this today, it's because I'm coming into this podcast completely insecure about the speed in which I talk.
I didn't say all the time. I just said sometimes I wish everybody had a speed button. And I'm sure people would say the same thing for me. Like when you're thinking through something and you're talking, you're like, all right, like get to the point. Like it would be so much better if I could just push a button and speed it up real quick. Or if someone, you know what I'm saying.
So in this podcast, at any point in time, if you hear Travis do this beep, it's because he's wanting me to talk faster.
Speed it up.
And if I'm ever like, slow your roll, Travis, it's because I actually want him to slow down and invite me into the entire sentence and not just the period.
The cliff notes.
Welcome to another Dream On podcast. My name is Julia Gentry. This is Travis Gentry. And today we are going to be talking about.
I think we already introduced ourselves, but welcome back. Welcome again. So I have a question for you today. My question is, if you could be on any game show, which one would you be on?
Which one does Steve Harvey do? Is that Family Feud?
Yes.
That one. And that would be you, me, and the kids. I think it would be amazing to be
Like
on
one?
the Family Feud with Steve Harvey one. I just love him. I think I love watching his, after clips and all the things. So I would be on Family Feud with our family.
That's awesome.
And especially because how much they're learning in school the other day, like the things that they know, I have no idea about. Like it's amazing how much they're learning that you just forget over time.
Like Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?
Yes. So they would help us win. The
Awesome.
facts that they're learning right now is amazing. I think we could take it all the way. Family
All the way.
Feud. Steve Harvey, I'll have my people call your people. Okay. So today, though, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about how fast we're talking or how slow we're talking. We're actually just going to talk about insecurities, though. We're going to talk about insecurities and the way that they show up, and specifically around how to break free from limiting beliefs. And we're going to invite you to a conversation that is really simple. It's not easy, but it's simple truth on how to not only get free, but how to stay free. There you have it.
I like it.
I like it. So this is also good timing. I don't know if you listened to our last podcast just around addiction and sobriety. They'll go hand in hand. But today we're going to kind of come at the areas in our life which we want to grow, and we know growth is available to us, and yet we're not growing and we're not able to break free. Or many episodes ago, Travis talked about this like glass box that we find ourselves in, where you can feel it, or others can feel it, or you just feel like, dang, I know that I'm bigger than this, or I'm more capable of this, and yet you're not.
Yeah.
like
you can see where you want to go.
See where you want to go.
But there's something holding you back.
You even you have the formula, you've got the guides, you've got the coach, you have like everything even setting you up for success, and yet you're not doing the work, or you're not seeing the results, or you just can't quite get there. Welcome to the world of limiting beliefs. So right out of the gate, I have a question for you about these. You know how Mark Twain says, it's not what you know that hurts you, it's what you think you know that just isn't so?
Yes.
So what do you think is the one thing that the person who thinks they know about limiting beliefs, but doesn't actually know about limiting beliefs, needs to know?
Say that again.
Yeah. I'm so nervous. The level of speed in which I'm talking today. I'm like,
if I go, just speed it up.
Gosh, I thought it was a fast talker too, so now I'm like completely convicted by this process.
It's not always. It was just sometimes. I'm sure I do too. So
no, your problem is
we're gonna be like,
yours is the opposite. You like to just look
note.
At me like I said so, and I'm like supposed to understand your whole sentence. You actually use fewer words that I wish I could like unwind, and like yours, you just talk about
Cliff Note version.
No, I don't.
Like I communicate in like bullet points.
Not even that.
Oh, I don't.
You're like
I don't.
symbols.
I just.
It's so you.
And if you're just listening to this, I gestured. So that's how I speak sometimes.
So my question is, the comment comes from Mark Twain, says, it's not what we know that hurts us. It's what we think we know that just isn't so. In my opinion, limiting beliefs is one of those topics that most of us, quote unquote, we know a lot about. It's a very sticky topic. Everybody would limiting beliefs is not something that's a new concept. However, most of us are living within the confines of this limiting belief. Like we're not seeing freedom in
Yeah.
our lives. We're not showing that, oh, I know it, like, because our life is not transformed by it. So what do you think people think they know about limiting beliefs that you're like, it's not true? And it's why you're not seeing freedom in these areas of your life. Because you're not thinking about this the right way.
Well, if you don't have the results in your life, then you're thinking you know something that you really don't know, because you would have the results that you want if you really did know.
So
It's kind of like a poet, right?
Didn't know it.
Write that down.
So the idea here is that if you don't have the results that you want, but you know the results that you want, you have a limiting belief.
Well,
is that what you're suggesting? So if you know what you want, but you don't have the results that you want, are you suggesting that they have a limiting belief?
You haven't identified or truly understand your limiting belief, and then how to dance with it. Because a limiting belief doesn't go away. It's just, how do you work with it? How do you make it less than what it really is? And so, yes, if you don't have the results or on a path to get the results, because there again, you can know how to lose weight and get in shape, or think you do, but then you're working out and you're not getting the results. Like, for instance, there's this lady that walks around our neighborhood all the time.
I hope she does not listen to our podcast
all the time.
We're about to call
and
you
if
out.
you are, I think you have a limiting belief that you're just not aware of, or
you're not going to get there.
I would love to know the results that you're looking for, because we've lived here for a year. She walks around all the time, and physically I have not seen a big change in her.
Yeah.
So I think most of the time, like, we know where we want to go, but if we're not getting to where we want to go, then there's something that is prohibiting us from getting those actual results.
Yeah.
And it's like, not consciously, it's subconsciously.
Yeah.
So T. Harv Eker talks about, like, the money, in Millionaire Mind. He talks about the money blueprint.
Okay.
So growing up, you create and design a money blueprint based off of a lot of what you see and experience. And so if you're not getting the results that you want financially, then you need to understand your money blueprint. Where what happened? What do I think about money? What is my relationship with money? Why does money come to me easily? Why does money run from me? Like, all the things. And then where do I want to go? And then what do I need to change? What is the belief that I have about it that I need to change that is not so?
Yeah.
And so with that, I think for all of us, and even us as well, like, as we're pursuing goals in our life, we are aware of probably more so at a deeper level than most, but it's still like an unpacking.
Always.
Because there's different levels to it, and you get to a new level and you have new awarenesses.
Okay, so that's what I would say. Like, if I could say how I want someone to be thinking about limiting beliefs is the same way you would about heaven's revelations. Like, just when we think we know how good God is, we're not even close. Just when we think that we, like, oh my gosh, I know this scripture, all of a sudden there's like a new level of understanding of the scripture. Like, revelation never stops. And equally so with our limiting beliefs, the liar is not going to go away, right? Until Jesus comes back and redeems us and starts this whole thing over again in reflection of what the prophecy says. The liar doesn't go away, which means neither do the lies. And so oftentimes I work with so many people who are like, well, now that I know my limiting belief, like, shouldn't it get easier? You're like, no. And in fact, that lie, there's roots to that lie, and there's depths to the lie, just as there is manifestations of greater revelation, there is of the lie as well. And it has different shapes and faces and colors. And I think the awareness of it is important. And to your point, like, the dancing of, like, for me, it's that our beliefs will always create agreement with one of the kingdoms. So when I decide to believe in something, I actually empower that kingdom. So if I'm going to believe the lie, I empower the enemy. I'm going to believe the truth, I empower the truth. So I'm constantly empowering a kingdom, right? And the Bible says we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and darkness of this world. So I think what I love is this conversation of the thing under the thing, and starting to unpack what it is in our lives. I think it's so important, and is ultimately what helps us to not only get free, but stay free.
Yeah. Yep. As you're saying this, there's like so many things going through my mind.
Beyond the beep.
Yeah, I haven't beeped yet.
Okay, good.
You're good, because it's giving me time. Your slow talking is giving me time to process.
You're welcome.
is it's amazing how like we have these beliefs and limiting beliefs and how they can come about and how someone can plant a seed or say something that you then think is true but is really not true, but then you make it like as though it is truth.
Mhm.
For instance, Malachi went to a camp and a boy told him, and it was one of the leaders, as far as like working out and what you should do and how this doesn't work. And, something with like working out with heavy weights doesn't, like give you muscles or something. I don't know, something. And he told me that. And I was like, Malachi, is like, where'd you hear that? And he was like, the boy from camp. And I was like, I was like, that's not true. I think it really depends on there again, what you're trying to accomplish and all that. But then hearing Malachi, he told one or two other people outside of me.
Mm.
So he was taking it on. Someone told him, so he thought it was true. Then he's telling other people. And so I had to correct him of Malachi. Like, it's fine to get information from someone, but always like trust and then verify.
Mhm.
And so he could go around and believe what this kid said, which is
Mhm.
absolutely not true,
Mhm.
based off of like true data and science and results
Yep.
that I have physically had
Mhm.
on what this leader boy was saying.
Yeah.
And he was, a young one, probably,
Mhm.
16, 17 years old.
Yep.
But it's like, it's amazing how we can carry something in our life that someone told us and how it can be the furthest from the truth.
Well, it's okay. So this brings up a huge point, the difference between fact and truth.
Yeah.
I think that this, if we could all get this concept, it would revolutionize our lives, is that there is fact. Fact is, I got a bad report from the doctor. Fact is, I have $0 in the bank account. Fact is, right, Malika, here's a fact, right, that this particular thing doesn't work in the gym. Whatever it is, like there's fact. But what happens is then I start to lower my standard to accommodate for fact, as opposed to taking fact and to aligning it with truth.
Mhm.
And I think that is the advantage in being a believer, is that we don't live according to fact. We live according to truth. And so what did that mean? It means that it talks about meditate on the word day and night. Why? So that I can be careful to do everything that is written in it. That's truth. Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So I think that our filter constantly has to be, hey, am I experiencing freedom in this area of my life? And if I'm not, then, I'm actually not believing truth then. Like there's just there's no gray in this area. That's why I think God's word is amazing. There's no gray for God. Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. That means if I don't have freedom in this area, then there is still something here that I need to learn. And it either means that God is teaching me the lesson. To your point, I'm en route, right? I'm not wrong. I'm not believing that. I'm just en route to building the stamina and building the results in that area of my life.
Yeah.
Or I'm just straight up believing fact or lies, and I've got to completely repent and like rewire the way that I think about it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that there's two different tracks. Is
Yeah.
like, I'm either believing lie, get my mind right, or I'm en route, keep going.
Yeah. Or we can generalize a statement that someone makes and then make it as though like that is the like fact that I should believe.
Mhm.
And
Like,
then
give me an example for one that maybe you're even, maybe one that you're like,
well, another
right
one I
now.
remember my aunt telling, and she didn't tell it specifically to me, but I heard based off of what we were doing with real estate and how, rentals are bad and be a slumlord and all that. But the fact and the truth is she doesn't have rentals.
Mhm.
So wherever she picked that up,
Yeah.
and her naivety of like saying something that she actually doesn't have proof in,
Mhm.
and there again, could that be a fact both ways?
100%.
Yes, there's bad landlords and there's good landlords.
Mhm.
And so I think with anything like alcohol is, and we just talked about that too, is alcohol bad? No. But if you abuse it and make it your idol or your God, then yes, it is bad.
Yeah.
And so I think it's where we're getting our information and then
Mhm.
how we're processing it for us.
Well, okay, so we talk about this in our academy, right? Where it's a 12-week program where we walk people through the entire dream framework. It's one of the most incredible things, and we're in one right now. And part of what we walk people through in this belief formation equation is that beliefs don't just happen. Like, you're not just born with belief, you actually build them over time. And it starts with an experience in time, which means nothing, right? Like, you and I it could be raining and you're like, best day ever. I could say worst day ever. It's just rain.
Yeah.
Like, it just is. And it means nothing until the interpretation that we give it. Which means your interpretation matters, right? But then after I interpret it, now I'm going to go look to confirm that my way is true. So if I think it's going to be a bad day because of the rain, I'm going to go find every blog and everything in Instacart and everything in Amazon and everything that confirms and all the books that prove that my fact, right? Not even true, just fact that it's going to be a bad day when it rains.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to stack the evidence, right? Because I want to be right. I want to prove you wrong. And then I start to internalize and go, well, because it's raining and because it's a bad day, that means I'm just going to have a bad day, which means now look at my luck.
Yeah.
Now I'm not going to ever get anywhere because it's raining and God doesn't have my back. And then I literally create this whole worldview around rain, myself. And then I wonder why life isn't great.
And then you act accordingly.
I act accordingly.
And that's ultimately like, I think limiting belief can be like thrown around, and to me, I just look at it as like, what is at a very simplistic level of what is a belief that I have or I carry around that is prohibiting me to get the results that I want.
Yeah.
And so if I look at each situation, I'm like, do I have the exact body that I want? Am I lifting the amount of weight that I want? Am I financially where I want to be? And then it's unpacking of like, and a lot of them, it's almost, like they lead to the same potential limiting belief.
Yeah.
But there also could be a few different offshoots of that.
Agreed.
That affect you differently in different areas of your life.
So, but how do you know, because I think you bring up a good, how do you know the difference between, okay, I'm in a place. So let's say I'm, okay, I'll give my example. So right now I would say,
I'm just joking. I just wanted to throw that.
so
out there.
I'm like waiting for Travis to be like beeping me. I think what's funny about this is if you know me at all, you're like, this girl does not talk slow. She's anything but a slow talking human. Like I think that I'm very secure in myself, except in this moment, this podcast right now. Most of the time I'm getting like notices from like my staff is like, slow down. Like everybody's got like, slow down, break it down, give me steps. I'm like, oh, except for my husband. He's like, go faster. Okay, so I know financially that as a company, I want to be further along than we are.
Mm-hmm.
How do I know if we are believing limiting beliefs around the financial piece? And how do I know that we're just en route and we need to keep going? Do you know, like how I'll use my specific, but anyway, how do I know when it's a limiting belief and when it's a stay the course and keep going? Right? Or you think about Joseph. How did Joseph know that when he's in the pit or the prison or even in palace before the prophecy happens, how did he know if he was in a limiting belief or that like, no, you're actually en route, just keep going. God's teaching you something. God's showing you something. God's leading you versus no, I put myself in my own box and God has nothing to do with this. I'm sat and I'm squatted and I've decided that nothing good is ever going to happen. I'm never going to have enough. How do I know the difference?
Yeah. I think in your business, you have to track the metrics.
Right.
And are you gaining, followers? Are you gaining likes? Are you downloads, subscriptions? Are people staying on the videos that you're putting out X amount of time? Like there's metrics that you can measure against what the standard or successful is.
Okay.
And it's like, you have to compare that and look and see. Like there again, and Gary Vaynerchuk talks about it, and other people that I've followed in the past, you can put out all the content that you want and be like, well, I've been doing this for 5 years and put out a video every day, and it's like I haven't gained any subscribers. And the fact is, no one likes the content that you're putting out.
Yeah.
And so you either need to change it.
Yep.
Like you need to change the content or how you're delivering the content. You need to do something different to get different results.
Yeah.
So if you're measuring your KPIs in your business and you're saying, okay, like we are growing, or we're kind of hitting a plateau, or we haven't even gotten off the ground, then there's something that's a disconnect, whether it's the marketing, the message, the delivery of it. Because I think what you say is unique to you, but it's also not unique. In the sense of like other people are saying it in different ways and have been saying it for years and years and years. And so I think for your business, that's what you have to track.
Well, I think that this isn't even so as you're saying this, I think it's one of those things like there's the answer is that you got to look at the ripple effect of the patterns. So if you are, you know that you are hunkered down, stuck in a limiting belief because you're getting more of those results, right? There
Yes.
is no growth. And in fact, it's kind of the same shit different day. Like it just is going to look very much like if I keep at this and I compound this by 30 years, it's going to look the same. Versus if I'm starting to see that like we're trending in the right direction, right? That like actually things are moving and it is shifting and it is changing, or the weight's starting to come off, or the increase, like the finance, like I think that the trends are important. I think patterns are important, right? So I think that
100%.
that to me is the ability to know, okay, are my patterns, what I should say this in a different way, is what are my patterns telling me? Because I think that will tell you, are you en route, keep going, or are you hunkered down and you're like stuck in this box of limiting belief?
Yeah, and I think for most people, or what I've seen, whether it's real estate investing or it's stocks, it's like, 10% actually can make a living out of doing it,
Mhm.
and there's a weeding out process.
Yeah.
And I don't know why or what it is. I think it comes from both God and the enemy, but there's a weeding out process, and it's to strengthen you to get to the next level and to stay at the next level.
Mhm.
And so I think a lot of people quit prematurely because they're not getting the results, or they surround themselves with people that will comfort them in their failures,
Yep.
as opposed to saying, like, look, you're doing something wrong
Yep.
because that guy's successful. So what are you doing that is getting you the results, but that person is doing the exact same business that you're trying to accomplish in,
Yep.
but you don't have the fruit, you don't have the results that person does.
Well, I think what you're speaking to is um in the book of James 1, it talks about this. It says, let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you ask wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But if you look at that, if any of you lacks wisdom, if any of you are stuck, if any of you have a limiting belief, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But the verse right before that, it says, let perseverance finish its work. What does that mean? Well, if you walk all the way back, and I think this is why scripture is like, it's telling us exactly what it wants us to know, like it, but it's not in the order. We want James 1:5. We want ask anything of God and he's going to give it to you. I like James 1:5. Like ask
Hmm.
of God. But
Yeah.
check, go back all the way to James 1:2. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds. Like,
Hmm.
I don't think we live in a world. I looked at one of the gals I coached yesterday, and she's ready to tap out. And I know I am like, okay, in my mind, the area that she's willing to tap out, I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. And it took everything in me to go, God, what do you actually want her to hear right now? Because she's like, I just feel like I'm going to give up. And I looked at her and I said, I love you enough to tell you you are bigger than this and you are stronger than this. And you are going to have to make a conscious decision that you're either going to look like everybody else, which is we live in a very weak world right now. That's telling us we shouldn't have problems and that we don't know how to do it, and that like things should come easy. And so I read her this Bible verse. And it says, consider it pure joy when you face troubles of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. When my faith is tested and
Hmm.
I continue to lean in and not just look for the easy path and not just tap out and not just do what I've always done, but I recognize that the faith is producing perseverance. Then it says perseverance, once it finishes its work, which means I am now more mature and I'm closer to God. So I actually have grown in a way that my heart is so close to God's, that I look so much more like him, that now I actually can ask God for anything and it will be given to me. Why? Because I am thinking like him, I'm acting like him, my heart is closer to him, and now it's a byproduct. Most of us start over here asking God when we're immature, lacking everything, lacking all the things. So we're praying for more money, more power, more love, more. We're in safety, security. So like we're like at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy. We're not close to his heart. We're desperate.
Hmm.
And that desperation is supposed to create this place of like, get in and do the push-ups, like get in and do the work. To your point, like let the testing of your faith develop the perseverance that gets you stronger. And when you're stronger and you lean in him even more and you trust him, then your heart starts to look more like him. So when your heart looks more like him, you're able to ask for anything and he gives it to you because your heart is right. Your motive is right.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where I'm at right now, is breaking free of my limiting belief has actually, God, I need my heart to look more like yours. Like I want my heart to be after what your heart is after. That's been the cry of my heart lately. So at some level, the testing of my faith, we have to almost go, thank you. Like when was the last time we were like, thank you, God, for this test, because it's revealing something within me that I didn't even know was there.
Yeah. I mean, yes. And we just talked about it last night. And I think being super transparent is like, this has been a hard season for both of us.
Yeah.
Because we're pressing into something totally new.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you first start something new, and you've been doing this for years, but the how you're doing it is new.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think anytime you have a new idea, whether it's brand new and you're starting it, or you're shifting your business and adding or doing something, it's like exciting. Maybe you get a little bit of results and you're like dopamine hit,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, this is awesome. This is going to be amazing. And I'm going to get there tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then the reality check comes in of like, no, this is a process. And it, with anything that is worthwhile, is going to take some time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is coming back to what you're saying. It does. It has to kind of break you down to build you up
Mm-hmm.
in whatever you're doing. And all the things that you've learned, and I've heard you have a conversation with one of your clients, is that like, and this was a few months ago, of like you'd be like, I don't like doing this and I have to figure this out. And then you figured it out. And then like 2 weeks later, your client had a struggle and you're like, I know how to do that. And you helped them through it. So there again, it's like your pain or your knowledge that you went through, there's a purpose to it.
Yeah.
And you don't know it in the midst of it.
Yeah.
And so for me too, it's like, I know that, in this business, not everyone's going to be successful. And that's all I know, that 10% are, that's all I need to know.
Yeah.
So I'll be in the 10% or the 5%, but I know I'm not going to get there tomorrow. It's frustrating. And I know I'm better than how it's been, but I'm not willing to quit or give up, because there's something within me, because I'm around people that are absolutely crushing it, but they're obviously seeing something that I'm not seeing quicker than I'm seeing it. And so now it's just training myself and time under tension, time on the charts, whatever it is that you're doing, to say like, I'm in it for the actual journey of it, not just the destination.
Yeah.
And I think we get so locked into the destination, and if we're not there tomorrow, then it doesn't work and we get frustrated. And I've Alex Hermosi said, like, when he started social media and he hired the first person to help him with I think some editing or something, putting it up on the YouTube, he was like, basically didn't have like a time frame. He's like, no, let's go. And I'm committed to making this work. It wasn't like, well, if this doesn't work in 6 months, I'm done. And that's how most people are. And so like, it's the approach that you take of like, I'm not willing, I know this is going to be hard, but I'm not willing to give up. And I think the mindset that you go into it, but circling back around to like the beliefs that you have, is like, what is the belief that you need to go back and look at that is not serving you to allow you to get to where you want to go? And you can either turn around and look at it and face it and understand it and then dance with it, or you can drag it along like a big boulder, and it's just going to slow you down and you're going to get exhausted and it's going to wear you out, and then you'll end up quitting.
Well, and I think that there's two phases to this, right? Like there's the idea, and again, talking about this in the last podcast, of addiction, is any addict that's overcome anything knows that there's a difference between the day that you get free and when you stay free. There's a day, like to your point, there is a decision when you get free. This is when you break the addiction, you break the lie, right? It's a stronghold. It's a mindset habit. It's a physical habit. And a lot of these are limiting beliefs. Any patterns that we continue, it always is tied to a limiting belief. So the day that you break that thing is the day that you get free. Every day thereafter is the day that you just commit to staying free. Right. I think that when you get free, it's Isaiah talks about this. It says, they do not know, nor do they discern, for the enemy has shut their eyes so that they cannot see, in their heart so they cannot fully understand. That's a limiting belief. Now, then the Bible talks about, though, resist the devil and he will flee from you. So even in Jesus's journey in the wilderness, it says that God leads him into the wilderness. Why? Not because he's a bad God. He's just training him. This is just training ground. But then it says the enemy starts to, right? Then the enemy starts to lead him on this journey and bugs him relentlessly, which is exactly like, if the enemy's going to do it to Jesus, he's going to do it to us. But every single time that the enemy brings him a manipulated truth, which would be fact, right? So he's manipulating truth making it look like fact. Hey, Jesus, if you do this, hey, if you tell that, like, and he's caught, and he's just manipulating scripture just enough, which is exactly what the enemy does. He manipulates everything that God has made, but Jesus resists him every single time with truth. So I think this is what we have to get good at, is we have to get so good at knowing the manipulation of the enemy, knowing the manipulated truths that are now disguised as facts, and they seem real and they appear real, or it's instant gratification, is that Jesus's model is resist and with truth. Resist with truth. Resist the enemy and he will flee. But then if you notice, there's 3 times that the enemy comes at Jesus. And then finally it says that Jesus is greeted by the angels and they tend to his soul. And so what that tells us is that there's going to be a time where you got to resist. And then at some point you have to fall into the arms of God, because you're going to be exhausted. And the angels have to attend to your soul, because you're like, dang, that was vulnerable. And that triggered me. And I wanted to run and hide again. And I wanted to go back to the addiction. And like, I was standing my ground, and this is really hard. And I think that there's something to be said about, there's just times in our stay free zone that are going to be fine. Days that we have to resist the enemy, and days that we just have to like pause and like rest in the arms of God, and make sure that we are very clear around what we need to like fill ourselves back up. Because I think it's on those weak spots that's where it's so easy to go back.
Yeah.
It's so easy to quit. It's so easy to start believing the lies again. And so I think that that's a powerful piece in staying free.
Well, and understanding, and we talked about it just this week, of like the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Knowing that, like, and there again, I don't know how you live life without faith.
Yeah,
you know, I think that understanding that there are 2 forces, and one is against you and one is for you. The one that's for you is more powerful than the one that's against you, but you've got to stay in line with the one that's for you.
Have truth. Good.
And so understanding that all things are possible, and understanding that you have to put in the work.
But okay, so go back to this thing. Anything is possible. Again, we like that part of it. I just did this exercise with the kids. It's this key that I'm wearing on my neck. The Bible verse is, anything is possible for he who believes. So our key is belief.
Yeah.
The key is belief that anything is possible. All of us want anything is possible, but very few of us will wear this key on our neck and go, until my dying day. The Alex Ramosi, I don't know, I'm going to post it till it works.
Yeah.
Like I'm just going to do it.
I think it's also, and this could be another podcast that we do, is that I think some people live in a unrealistic time frame and or like world.
1,000,000%.
Like, they think that not everyone's going to be a professional athlete. Not everyone is going to be a superstar singer. You may have an amazing voice and want to be on a stage of thousands of people, but God has actually called you to be on a stage at the church.
Yeah.
And so I think you've also got to be and understand, like, you can't look at someone and idol them and say, I want to do that too. They've done it, you know, and I say this, like, if someone's done it, why not me? But I'm also realistic too. Like, I'm not going to be a basketball player, because I'm not, 6'6", and I don't have the ball handling skills. And so I think it's also being realistic with the God-given talents that you have. Because I think some people like they live on other people's dreams.
Totally. It's the motive. I think what you're talking about is the motive of our heart, right? So what I'm hearing you say is that if I have a dream, but my motive is because I just want to be like someone else, or maybe I'll be more loved or more valuable, right? Like, that's the motive of our heart. What I love is the people who it's that underdog who, like, they were too short, they weren't fast enough, but they stuck, but they wanted it enough that they were just willing to do it. And they became the anomaly, even with odds against them.
Yeah.
So I feel like your motive of your heart is crazy important. I feel like your relentlessness to I can't not do this. Like, I will stay this course no matter how long it takes.
Yeah.
Like that to me is, I don't think people do that enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just being, and there's certain people with certain talents and skills, like real estate, for instance, going through all the workshops and stuff. I can identify people that are not going to be successful. Could they be successful if they change some patterns and habits and limiting beliefs and all that? Maybe. But I don't know if they were truly designed to understand.
But so then doesn't it go back to the motive? Like, if you really sat down with those people and you kept going, why do you want this? Why do you want this? Why do you want this?
You're right. So their motive is
wrong.
I will
finally be successful. When I have money, then I will go serve the church. You're like, no, go serve the church. Like,
it'll give me identity of like, I'm
that's what
this
I'm saying.
person, as opposed to like, and that's not the person you're supposed to be.
Agreed.
Yes.
So it's like, if you're in something going, well, if I have this,
Say that,
then I'll have this.
say that in a different way though. It's exactly what I'm saying.
Meh.
Do you want me to talk slower?
I think, here's what I'm saying. I want to echo back to you. I actually think that God used the most unrealistic people to do the most incredible things. That's how our God works. So I actually don't think it's about being realistic. I think that it's about your heart motive, meaning that I can't not do this, right? So the people in the room who move the mountains are the ones that sometimes are the most not qualified, with the most least amount of skill set, but their hunger and their drive and their I'm going to do it no matter what is ultimately what. Now, are some people who also love football and you look at them, you're like, yeah, like you check all the boxes. Yes. But their drive also and their continuous like relentlessness put them in that seat that they're in. It's the motive when you're looking at 89 to 99% of the room that like, I just want to make more money because then I'll be happy. Then I'll be successful.
Yeah.
Then I can go start my ministry. Then I will write my book. You're like, please don't do this. Like save yourself some time because you're doing this to get there. Just go do that.
Yeah. No, I think it's motive, because it truly is, you know, like God calls, God doesn't call the equipped. He calls,
He equips the called.
He equips the call. And so I think, yes, 100%. So if your motive is in the wrong place and your heart is in the wrong place,
yep, 100%.
You may never be successful.
Yeah. Well, and then think about it. I mean, I'm like on this kick right now. I'm reading through the Bible this year, and I've been reading Genesis, but like slowing down, like not to read it just to read it. Like I really want to understand it. I'm studying it. I'm reading all the footnotes. I'm reading all of the people that we taught, like the men of faith, from Abraham to Noah to Joseph. Abraham, number one, did not have Isaac, his dream, until he was in his hundreds. But the dream that God gave him was that you would be a father of multitudes. Like as far, he says, Abraham, look at the grains of sand, more than those. He didn't actually in his lifetime get to see the revelation of that prophecy. What does that mean? It means that God's ways are higher than our ways. And so Abraham doesn't get to see that all of us today, like we're the prophecy of that. He didn't get to see that in his lifetime. Right? Like I remember the day Mallory died, when you read her journals, she wanted to be a catalytic force, right? Like Mal wanted to make the world a better place. She died at 17. We would have said, well, she never got to see that. Well, but she is today. Like her message, through this book and like her message, and Cindy said this, her mom at the last conference, of like, Julia, this is a reflection of the dream that Mallory had. And so I think sometimes it's so easy for us, to your point, like, well, it didn't happen in 7 days or 7 years, but it's bigger than that.
Yeah.
And so Joseph, it took him 22 years to see his dream fulfilled. Moses or Abraham was in his hundreds, and like, yet he still didn't even like scratch the surface of seeing the full prophecy. And so I think you're right. I think our timelines, our will, our way, our timelines get in the way of what God's ultimately doing.
Yeah.
I don't know how limiting beliefs got us to this. I literally was
They're all intertwined. It's all intertwined.
So what we're really trying to invite you into is this, like, it's bigger than you. God's ways are higher than your ways. And the idea here is, don't let your limiting beliefs keep you playing small in God's bigger picture.
And then understanding like where your heart is.
Oh man. Where your heart is, there, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Yeah. Where's your heart? How's your heart?
It's good.
So good?
So good.
So I don't really know how to end this one, because I don't know if we're supposed to be talking about your limiting beliefs or heaven or dreaming bold, or I don't know. So really just come back for our next episode. We'll put a nice bow on it, continue to encourage you in your journey. But dude, take a hot minute, really check your motives. And then when you're done checking your motives, make sure you click the link in the show notes for more about our academy and our dream framework that will help you radically get set free from your limiting beliefs and boldly chase after the dreams that God has given you. If not now, when? And if not you, who? So until next time, break those limiting beliefs, get free, stay free, dream on.